by Danielle Avell. And in this piece, Breitbart points out all these protests going on. And one such protest on Sunday, just blocks from the Israeli consulate in Miami, and all these groups that have come together to protest against Israel and physically accost one or two people or a handful of people who are supporting Israel. Now stick with me. Don't be bored yet. And one of the groups involved is this group CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. And I thought, even though I've done this before in a more limited way, I thought we'd spend at least part of our first hour really digging into what is this group CARE? Where did it come from? How was it founded? Who are these people? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they show up everywhere. The Investigative Project on Terrorism is an outstanding organization. And they have a piece I have linked to on my social sites, Facebook and Twitter, that you can read in full when you have more time. But I want to touch on something here. Let me read you a quote. By God, what I have to do is to arrange the program. We have to have a meeting on October 2nd, said Omar Ahmad to the two others on the call. Ahmad, a future CARE co-founder, Council on American Islamic Relations, proceeded to discuss the details of the meeting, who would attend, where it would be held, even the logistics of getting the attendees from the airport to the hotel. Secretly recorded by the FBI in September 1993, the telephone conversation between Ahmad, Holy Land Foundation leader Shukri Abu Bakr, and Hamas activist Abdullah Halim al-Ashkar, I know it's all jumbled, just stick with me, shows Ahmad leading a planning session for an upcoming meeting of the Palestinian Committee, a Hamas support network in the United States. The Palestinian Committee, a Hamas support network in the United States. Now remember the history we've discussed already, that the PLO has its links to the Third Reich, to Adolf Hitler and Himmler and Goring and all the rest, that the Mufti who founded the Palestinian Liberation Organization was involved in the final solution, and he was pushing Hitler even further in ways to systemically slaughter the Jews. Hitler promised him, the Mufti, that when he was done in Europe taking over the world, that he would appoint him in charge of the Middle East and put him in charge of wiping out the 350,000, a half a million Jews they said were in the Middle East. So this is the birth of the Palestinian movement, and Hamas not only comes out of that movement, but also is a break-off of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood, which gave birth to Al-Qaeda and Hamas and so forth. So CARE, let me be as clear as I know how. CARE was born out of Hamas. CARE was born out of Hamas. Let's go step by step. So Omar Ahmad, along with Nihad Awad, that name, remember that. All these names are complicated, I know, it's all Greek to us, but Nihad Awad formed the Council on American Islamic Relations in September 1994, 20 years ago. And for the next many years, Ahmad served on the boards of both CARE National and CARE California. And until 2005, Ahmad served as the group's national chairman. In late 2008, the FBI suspended formal relationships with CARE, which had been working with, believe it or not, citing evidence from the 2008 Holy Land Foundation trial. In November 2008, the Holy Land Foundation and 5 of executives were found guilty of funneling millions of dollars from the United States to Hamas. Ahmad was listed as an unindicted co-conspirator in the case, named as someone who was a member of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood's Palestine Committee and or its organizations, unquote. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, when Louis Gohmert, Michelle Bachmann, and a relative handful of others spoke up about the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood in this country, in this government, and they came under immediate attack from John Boehner, from John McCain, from even the conservative media in this country, it was an absolute outrage. An absolute outrage. Let's continue. So when you see these people from CARE, you'll know what you're dealing with. Ahmad announced his retirement as CARE's chairman emeritus in May 2009, shortly after the FBI's decision regarding CARE became public. That is, not to deal with them anymore. Although I suspect they're dealing with them plenty now. Evidence from the Holy Land Foundation trial explains Ahmad's designation as an unindicted co-conspirator. Not only was he a Palestinian Committee leader, he served as president of one of the committee's central organizations, the Islamic Association of Palestine, for 2 years. This group served as a Hamas propaganda outlet in the United States. After Ahmad became a CARE leader, he continued to support the Holy Land Foundation, another one of the committee's primary components. Ahmad's bargaining power within the Holy Land Foundation, even after CARE's formation, is demonstrated by FBI wiretaps between him and Holy Land Foundation leaders. Remember, this Holy Land Foundation was set up to launder money from the United States to Hamas, a terrorist group, with Nazi ties. Under Ahmad's watch, CARE both received donations from the Holy Land Foundation and helped solicit donations from the U.S. Islamic Charity. The Palestinian Committee. Stick with me. We're connecting all the dots here tonight. In a Department of Justice appellate brief in the Holy Land Foundation case, Omar Ahmad was described as a Palestinian Committee leader. FBI agent Laura Burns, who testified before the trial, also called him a leader within the Palestinian Committee. And the evidence was overwhelming. Now, why is all this important? Because these are the groups and these are the people that created CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. October 1993, the Philadelphia Conference. 27 men assembled at a Marriott hotel in Philadelphia. Unbeknownst to the attendees, the FBI was also attending the meeting, recording their conference and snapping photos of their arrival. According to prosecutors, the purpose of the meeting was to determine their course of action in support of Hamas's opposition to the U.S.-led Middle East peace agreement between the Israelis and Palestinians, the Oslo Accords, and, quote, to decide how to conceal their activities from the scrutiny of the United States government, unquote. So here we have this rat's nest right within our midst. Omar Ahmad would later claim he didn't recall attending the meeting. But as the FBI's recordings show, Ahmad not only moderated the conference, he also planned it. And in addition to the FBI recordings, Ahmad's presence at the meeting has been confirmed by flight records and Marriott hotel records. In fact, credit card records show the Holy Land Foundation member, another one, Haitham Magauri, used the Holy Land Foundation's American Express corporate account to pay for Ahmad's round-trip plane ticket from Texas to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, in addition, the FBI recorded another phone conversation between Ahmad and Palestinian Committee leader Ashkar on September 27th, just days before the Philadelphia conference. Now, why is this important? Because they are showing who was involved in and how CARE got its beginning. Ashkar and Ahmad, I know it sounds like a bad movie, but stick with me, discussed the final number of attendees expected at the October 2nd, 1993 meeting. Their final count came out to about 23 or 26. At a government summary, the Philadelphia meeting attendees described them as members of the Palestinian Committee and its organizations, including the Holy Land Foundation. The Holy Land Foundation. Now, throughout the Philadelphia conference, Ahmad and Abu Baker worked together to lead the session, steering conversations, enforcing time limits for speakers, and answering questions other attendees had about organizational roles. Ahmad, along with the others, discussed concealing their Hamas support and activities from the U.S. government and the American people. Ahmad said the group has always demanded that 1948 territories that now make up much of Israel. But as an unnamed participant added, "We don't say that publicly." You cannot say that publicly in front of Americans, Ahmad agreed. No, he said, we didn't say that to the Americans. Well, obviously, the 1948 territories really is the abolition of Israel. That meant, an unnamed participant said, they needed to promote their goals while being careful not to show that the association, that is, this Islamic Association for Palestine, as an opposition party with direct connections with the inside. It expresses its position. It expresses the movement's Hamas position. But it doesn't say, I represent this side or anything like it. I'll finish this up in a moment. Council on American Islamic Relations. It's really the Council on Hamas Relations. It is a dangerous front group for Hamas. So these scoundrels are meeting in Philadelphia, and they decide we need to create this group in the United States. We need to pretend it doesn't have links to Hamas and its goals, but we know that it will. And this group needs to be a front group. And this group needs to pretend to be a civil rights group. And this group needs to be everywhere. In every major metropolitan area, it needs to be in the media. And that's exactly what CARE has been doing. Ahmad's group, CARE, grew out of discussions at this Philadelphia conference. FBI agent Burns testified at the 2008 trial of the Holy Land Foundation leaders. One conferee, FBI transcripts show, said that they needed to begin thinking about establishing alternative organizations which can benefit from a new atmosphere, ones whose Islamic hue is not very conspicuous. The organization that was started as a result of that was CAIR, C-A-I-R, Prosecutor Barry Jones asked Burns. That was an organization that was created after the Philadelphia meeting as a result of this, she answered. Burns' claims match up with Ahmad's comments in Philadelphia. Don't worry about registering a new organization, Ahmad told his colleagues at the Philadelphia conference. Registering an organization is easy. Here in America, you begin working first, and you then go register. And records show CARE did just that. CARE was listed as part of the Palestinian Committee in a July 30, 1994 internal document. Yet its incorporation documents show CARE was formed 2 months later in September 1994. And during the Philadelphia conference, Ahmad joined a conversation about concern over the Oslo Accords empowering the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And as part of the Oslo Accords, Israel agreed to recognize the PLO as the legitimate government of the Palestinian people. You remember all this was going on in 93 and 94 under Clinton. The Palestinian Committee, Ahmad said, had an advantage over the PLO. Now it's this committee, you see, this organization of these disparate radical Islamists and jihadists, the umbrella organization that was setting up that was setting up CARE. They said they had an advantage over the PLO because the PLO didn't have a big presence in the United States. And given Ahmad's leadership at a conference set on derailing the Oslo Accords, it's not surprising he rejected the peace process in a 1999 interview as, quote, a security arrangement in which the stronger party, Israel, backed by the U.S., is getting the most, and the weaker party, the Palestinians, are forced to accept whatever is thrown at them, unquote. These are the propagandists, the mouthpieces for Hamas, which in 1994-95 was designated a terrorist organization by the United States government. CARE is a front group. Their spokesmen have an allegiance to Hamas and Hamas-related organizations. And Hamas has an allegiance to the Third Reich, to Nazism, through the Muslim Brotherhood and through the PLO. Now you know the rest of the story.